Hey, hey. Oh, I just realized my microphone isn't on. Hey, hey. What's going on, Bria? What's going on? Good to see you. So, kind of randomly back for a part two. This is impromptu, but you know what? I wanted to talk about it. It was on my heart because I just finished the live a few minutes ago about the Rebecca Lynn Pope, where she was giving women advice on black women who want to marry black men, and we did a whole breakdown on that. If you missed it, go back, check it out. I have receipts, I have sources if you want to kind of hear the playback there and the whole divestiture rhetoric. But I got off and I was like, oh, you can't hear me for real? I mean, wait, for real, for real, for real. Okay, thank you for letting me know. Wait, audio. Okay, can you hear me now? Let me know if you can hear me now. Can you hear me now? You should be able to hear me. Hopefully you can. If not, I'll have to do part. Let me know if you can hear me or not in the comment section since I'm. Okay, sweet. Yeah. So I just finished the. Okay, thank you. So let me rewind. So I just finished the live with I reviewed with the expand your options from the Rebecca Lynn Pope. You guys are familiar with her. She is the relationship, lifestyle coach, all that stuff. And we just basically reviewed her advice to women, on black women in particular, who want to marry, who want to marry black men, all that stuff. So I broke that down. You guys go check it out in the live if you want. I have different receipts, I have different sources, all of that. But I got off and I was thinking, you know what? I spent a lot of time going over what I think shouldn't be done and a lot of the lies. And I don't think I spent enough time really talking about what I have learned and what I believe is helping to guide me today on trying to be a better wife. And so I talked about being a virtuous woman. I talked about, being a God-fearing woman. And I just wanted to break down a little bit more what that means for me, what I'm learning. So for those of you who are not into what's going on, facts over feelings, marriage, politics, and sports, all of you guys. So yeah, I just wanted to break that down for you guys, what that means for me, some of what I've learned. I'm going to be going over Proverbs, which is what's going on with this one, which is a book in the Bible for those of you guys who maybe may or may not know. And there's a section, popular scripture, Proverbs 31, popular chapter, which really breaks down a lot of the different character qualities and traits that a woman should have, especially a woman of God. And the thing that I love about this chapter is, even if you are not a believer, even if you're not a Christ follower, the way this woman acts, the way that she comports herself and acts would be attractive even to people who aren't even secular, even people who aren't even who believe nothing about God or whatever. It would be attractive if this woman had these qualities. And so I read over this regularly as I'm trying to ask God to help mold me into a woman who's going to be of influence and positive way in my family, in my community, and people in my life. And that's what I wanted to share today. So I'm just going to bring it up real quickly. I'm going to read it. Let me see if I can bring it. I'm going to read it in a. Ooh, wait, did it not? Did it go away? Wait, did it go away? I'm going to read it in a version, a more modern version, because I know sometimes scriptures can get really, really complicated sometimes for people. But I just wanted to show you what I personally, or take you on the journey of what I've been personally have been studying and reading as I am trying to grow and evolve to being a wife worth marrying. And or not worth marrying, but a wife worth having. I've been married. But I think especially for women who actually want to be married, and for women who have all these laundry lists of the kind of men they think they deserve and they earn, to me, you want to ask yourself, are you even marriage material? Are you even bringing things to the table? And I think this passage to me perfectly encapsulates what a woman should desire to be as far as the right quality. So if we start at verse 10, right? I'm reading Proverbs 31, starts at verse 10. There's a couple of scriptures, and I'm personally reading from the Passion Translation, which is a more modern translation of the Bible, just to kind of break it down so that's a little easier to understand. But the first verse literally says, who could ever find a wife like this one, right? She is a woman of strength and mighty valor. She's full of wealth and wisdom. The price paid for her is greater than many jewels. So really, if you look at that, just that particular verse right there, What stands out to me is the fact that this woman has wealth, that she has a wealth of wisdom. She has knowledge. She has insight, right? She actually has value, something of value to offer to her husband. This is what we are starting off recognizing, right? This is a woman that is bringing something to the table. Her character, right? Her insight. She's adding value to whoever she is. Talks about the price paid for her was greater than many jewels. When we hear the whole thing, women are the prize, women are the prize, I think a lot of the reason there's pushback to that idea is because what we are seeing right now, by and large, amongst modern women is not a prize. The behavior that they are using to, the behavior that they are emulating is not the prize. Truthfully, it doesn't speak of women who values herself as a prize. It speaks truthfully to women who don't value themselves. It speaks to women who see themselves as less than. It speaks to women who really see themselves as, I don't even know, sometimes animals. Like literally, I feel like sometimes we act like animals. I hate to say it. Just being just driven by just our instincts, not having any higher morals or values that guide us. So a lot of the reason why guys push back today to the whole idea of women being the prize is because women don't act like the prize. But when you're actually bringing something to the table that's just far beyond looks, but something internal, intrinsic, then yeah, you are that. Your worth is greater than jewels, right? And that's exactly what they're saying. If we move on to the next verse, it says, her husband has entrusted his heart to her, for she brings him the rich spoils of victory. And so imagine that. Imagine being a woman that a husband can actually give his heart to. Imagine being the woman that you're not going to take what a guy has to say. You're not going to take what your man has to say or has said, or where he's shown his, intimate, vulnerable details of his life and use it against him. You're not going to down talk him. You're not going to talk about how emotionally weak he is. You're not going to talk about how he's not doing this or he's not doing that. You're not going to call all kinds of dusties. You're going to look at him and you're going to be a safe space for him to land emotionally. Imagine that. Imagine if we had women who were actually concerned about being the kind of woman who could hold secrets, who could actually maintain and who could care after the heart of her husband. Imagine if we made that a value. If that alone became a focus and an emphasis of modern women. And hey, how do I learn to be trustworthy? How do I learn to guard and value the heart of the men in my life? If that alone is a value, we wouldn't be having these relationship discourse. We wouldn't be having these toxic back and forth conversations. Men would be drawn to these women just because of the character, just because of who they are. Then it talks about she brings him the rich spoils of victory. Again, I'm talking about this woman actually is bringing something to the table. She is bringing something to the table, not just looks, not just lashes or BBL or whatever, not just a beat face, not just a banging body. All of that banging body is nice, maybe minus the plastic. But I'm saying she actually has something of value to offer as far as her character, as far as who she is, as far as what she is bringing intrinsically. And that's the thing a lot of times that is missed from these conversations when we talk about the relationships. There's a hyper focus on the physical. There's a hyper focus on what can be brought tangibly, whether it be money, education, resources, or even looks. But there's very, very, very little emphasis on the actual internal qualities and character that are needed to maintain a marriage. But that's everything. That is literally everything. So it says all throughout her life, she brings him what is good and not evil. I did a live on this where I talked about what would it mean if as a woman, you went throughout life with the mindset of, I'm going to behave in such a way that would bring honor to the man I will eventually marry. I'm going to behave in such a way that'll actually be respectful and that'll actually, again, give honor to the person that I will one day walk down the aisle with. Like, again, if women had that kind of mindset, bringing honor, right? Being respectful. If they had that kind of mindset, we wouldn't be having this relationship discourse. There wouldn't be this gender war would cease to exist. Because men would be drawn to women who actually exhibit this kind of character. They'd be drawn to that. Are you kidding me? A woman who brings something to the table intrinsically, she is a place of peace to where a husband can trust his heart to. She is continually trying to bring good to the conversation. She's continually trying to bring good to his life. Can you imagine? Can you imagine if that was the emphasis? If that's what women talked about? Can you imagine? This gender war would cease to exist. But the problem is these kinds of intrinsic qualities that are actually needed to maintain a good marriage, especially if you're one of those who wants you want a godly marriage, you want ones that are based upon spiritual principles. These kinds of conversations aren't had. It's about he's 6-pack, 6 figures, 6 feet. He emotionally connects with me. He buys me flowers. He dresses nice. He whatever. But it's like we're not talking about what actually maintains a marriage. Again, guys, like, share, subscribe. I see wisdom and kindness are essential. All of that. Just being kind. Again, she searches out continually to possess that which is pure and righteous. Y'all, again, do you look around? Do you see what's going on just an average everyday culture? Do we see there being any emphasis on character, period? Forget about purity and righteousness, just like basic character. Is that even desirable? Is that even seen as desirable? Is that even promoted as a valuable quality to have as a woman? Like being a righteous person, having a pure heart, being humble. Are these even seen as desirable character traits around women? Or are we talking about how to level up, how to be boss babes, how to try to get our bag, how to try to find men who are on our level? And again, what I'm saying is, like, if we actually focused on the qualities that made for a good wife, we wouldn't need to have this discourse. There would be no gender war. That's my point. Talks about she delights in the work of her hands. She actually works hard. She's not sitting up here trying to find a dude who can pay all the bills so she can't do nothing. She has no problem working. She gives out revelation truth to feed others. She is like a trading ship bringing divine supplies from the merchant. When I talked about earlier about bringing something to the table, having actually something to add of value to the conversation to your husband, knowing how to speak life into your husband, knowing how to encourage him when he needs to, knowing how to build him up. These are actually qualities that are needed. What's going on, Bella Rings? What's going on? These are qualities that are actually needed to maintain a marriage and to be a wife. And I ask you again, if women were actually focusing on doing this, on being a safe place for a husband to land, not minding working hard when she needs to, knowing how to encourage her husband, bringing something of value, honoring him all the days of her life, thinking with the mindset of, how do I honor this man that I will one day marry? How do I comport my body? How do I live my life so that I will one day honor this man that I've even not met yet? You honor your husband even before you meet him. If women were going throughout life with that kind of expectation and with that kind of focus, do you really think we would have this gender war? Do you really think men would talk about, I'm going to go, I need to grab my passports, SYSBM? Do you really think that? No. Like I said, even secular men who know nothing about God, care nothing about God, care nothing about spirituality, they themselves would be shocked by the character of these women. But the problem is, I'm saying, when we have this relationship discourse, so often we're focusing on what the person isn't doing, and there's not a lot of emphasis focusing on ourselves and the different things that we can be working on. I already went over a couple of verses that it's like, those alone, the qualities and the character that we see alone could take an entire lifetime for a woman to master. You know what I mean? Like, if we just spent more time doing our part and trying to become what we want, then we'll attract that. And giving her, right, that part. Absolutely that part. Okay, it says, even in the night season, she arises and sets food on the table, right, for hungry ones in her house and for others. Again, going back to this whole modern boss babe, I'm gonna just sit up here and find a man who can pay all the bills, so I ain't got to do nothing but get my nails done and get massages. Like, again, you're talking upper middle class, really upper class basketball housewife, but that's not reality. And how many of them housewives end up getting divorced? Anyways, that's the cold part. We look up to these women who have these lifestyles that are highly, highly unrealistic, fabricated, or just incredibly rare to have. And even those women end up getting divorced. Because again, if the emphasis and all the stuff if the emphasis is what you can get from a relationship, all the things you can extract, then you're not going to be happy in the long run because you're not basing it upon anything foundational. And that's what we see time and time again. This is why a lot of these basketball housewives end up being single moms, or they don't ever really fully marry. They may end up being eternal fiancés and then it breaks up later on, like, because we're focusing on all the wrong stuff. That's what we see all the time. Here it says she sets her heart upon a field and takes it on her as her own. She labors there to plant the living vines. As I mentioned before, this woman has no problem working. She has no problem using what she can at her disposal to actually improve her household, improve her income. So I don't know why there's this aversion. It's so weird because at the same time, women want the power to work and they want the freedom to work. But then at the same time, they want a man who can make it to where they don't have to. And that's, to me, doesn't make any sense. It's just like, you cannot have your cake and eat it too. And again, going back to having the kinds of qualities, if you have the skills, if you have the talent to be able to work and to be able to help build your family, your empire, you can be using that. You can be using that to expand. It doesn't have to be about, oh, well, he can't pay all this, he can't pay all that. It's like, what do you have at your disposal? And how can you use that to improve the situation? And not see that as like you're lesser than, but you're blessed to have the talents that you can to actually bring income, to actually help build up your empire. Like, a lot of the stuff to me is perspective. We're mad because we're looking at things from the wrong point of view. And then we're designing a lifestyle that's not even realistic. Forget about even being godly. Like, just on a purely just logical standpoint, it's not even realistic. And then on top of that, it's not godly. Like I said, you just sitting around acting like you're, being taken care of like you're a kid. You have no responsibilities. That's what some lovely ladies think that they want. But even if they were to get that lifestyle, they wouldn't like it. So she wraps herself in strength, might, and power in all her works. Again, this woman is working. She is using her talents. She is using it for positive, for good. She's not mad at it. She delights in it. And she's using it to actually help strengthen the foundation of her family. So she tastes and experiences a better substance, and her shining light will not be extinguished no matter how dark the night. To me, I see this as, again, this is a woman who was always bringing light, and she is always bringing goodness to her situation, whether it be even in hard times, right? Even in seasons, there's seasons that we go through in life. There's seasons that you go through in marriage. Right. But even then, she is still being a light because there's light inside of her. She has the Spirit of God inside of her that is bringing light, that is bringing hope, that is bringing goodness to those who are around her. Again, I ask you, if women focused on embracing these qualities and trying to become these kind of women and allowing God to make them these kinds of women, do you really think there would be a gender war? If they were walking in this power, in this revelation, if they were walking and living these kinds of ways, do you think there would be a gender war? Here it says she stretches out her hands to help the needy and she lays hold of the wheels of government. Again, she's not stingy and she's involved, whether it be locally, she's involved in her society to try to bring good, to try to bring betterment. So she is known by her extravagant generosity to the poor, for she always reaches out her hands to those in need. Again, this is a far cry from the Housewives kind of series where it's all about all this lavish, just excessive living. And again, look, I like nice things. A lot of people like nice things. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with having nice stuff, but I'm saying, again, a lot of the focus becomes excess and excessive lifestyle, and quite frankly, a empty lifestyle that usually doesn't lead to good results and definitely does not lead to long-lasting marriages. A lot of the marriages we see being portrayed on television, how many of them end? They look pretty, they look with the glitz and the glam, they portray images that we all like, but how many of them actually end up lasting? Very few of them. We don't see generosity being promoted as a quality. We don't see that being something that women talk about as a desire. Like, oh man, if I could just be more generous. Oh man, if I could just be more thoughtful. Man, if I could just be more loving. These are not the conversations that women are having amongst themselves when they talk about relationships. It's he didn't do this, he didn't do that, he didn't give me this, he didn't pay for this, he didn't show up this way. It's gimme. It's not, what am I bringing to the table? How can I be of value to somebody? How can I be of value to a person? Again, if we came with that mindset, we wouldn't be having these issues. Like would attract like. So she's not afraid of tribulation, for all her household is covered in dual garments. Again, she knows how to weather the storm because everybody goes through seasons. You have seasons of sunshine, you have seasons of storm. That's just the seasons of life, ebbs and flows. Blessings come, right? Sometimes hardships comes, but if you have a solid character, then you know how to navigate those challenges, especially in a relationship, and it doesn't break you. Because relationships, even those who perfect match, perfect everything, perfect looks, perfect money, he hits all the list, they're still going to go through hard times. And so you want to make sure that you have the characters to sustain it. This is why I like to talk about, are you actually what you think you want? You know what I mean? Are you actually worth the ring? Are you even wife material? Or is this all about you getting what you want and then just hoping you can portray an image of success? Because if it's just about you getting what you want so that you can portray an image of success and you don't deal with actually being a wife, then this is, I think, precisely why one of the reasons we have such a high, failure rate when it comes to relationships. Because there is not this desire to actually make it work. It's just about what I can get and how I can portray things. And again, that's not good. Says her clothing is beautifully knit together, a purple gown of exquisite linen. I've heard a lot of different takes on this. What I think when I read the scripture personally is just one of dignity, right? Having dignity, having class, and how she comports herself. I've heard some people speak to royalty, and again, when you look at different translations, it sometimes can kind of give you a different angle on this, especially when you look at like New King James or the King James, which is one of the original, at least in English. But I just think of royalty. Purple, I know, represents royalty in certain cultures. And again, imagine if women, instead of calling themselves queens, right, they actually comported themselves like they were royal and they acted accordingly, and they didn't act like commoners, right, and treat themselves like commoners, but they treated themselves with respect. Imagine if that happened. Again, a lot of this gender war stuff would not even exist. Says her husband is famous and admired by all, sitting as a venerable judge of his people. The reason to me this verse stands out is because if we look at the first couple of verses, it talked about a woman who brings her husband good all the days of her life, a woman who brings righteousness. She speaks revelation truth, right? Her husband can entrust his heart into her. This is a woman that is essentially building and being a safe space for her husband. When your husband has a safe space to be, that creates a great foundation and a great place for him to be able to grow and succeed into all God has created him to be. So yeah, her husband being famous, her husband being successful in whatever realm that he is, I think it's going to be a natural component. That's going to be a byproduct of these people growing together. Call it high value or not, if you're a high value woman, then you're probably going to instill having a high value man. Like they feed off of each other. It says, even her works of righteousness she does for the benefit of her enemies. I talked about this in my last live, where it's like, if we are truly, truly wanting to be women of God, there's even a way that you treat your enemies. There's even a way you treat your enemies. And the desire and the goal for all of us is to get to where our behavior, the way we treat ourselves, the way we are, is so impactful that even those who don't like us get blessed. Even those who don't like us are positively influenced. You're not going out there trying to be vengeful. You're not going out there just being ratchet. Just being ratchet, y'all. We see it all online. You are actually operating in such a way, and you are bringing so much influence for good and for positive, that even people who don't like you end up getting blessed. It says, bold power and glorious majesty are wrapped around her, and she laughs with joy over the latter days. Again, what did I talk about before? Not being ratchet, actually seeing yourself as having something to offer, treating yourself as a woman of dignity, of class, not treating yourself like you're some commoner. And when it talks about she laughs with joy over the latter days, based upon all the things that we've talked about earlier before, a woman who has a character, right? A woman she's a hard worker. She delights in the work of her hands. She is diligent in what she is doing. She has created a safe place for her family. She has created a safe place for her husband. She has a strong, firm foundation. She knows how to weather the storm. She knows how to ride through trying tribulation times. Based upon that, she's good. She's like, nothing that comes against me is going to overtake me because I have everything that I need. Again, I ask you, if there was a focus on instilling and nurturing these inequalities of what it actually means to be a wife, do you think all these women would go around crying about how hard it is to find a man? Or do you think that who they were, do we think that these qualities, that the nature of who they were, that the beauty, the internal beauty would start to inspire change, that the guys would not feel the need to go abroad to grab a passport, that we wouldn't have this discourse of these, narcissistic women or modern women. We wouldn't have this discourse because these women would naturally be bringing something to the table. If only that existed, if only that was the discourse that started to overtake these dialogues when it comes to modern women and dating and wanting to find a husband. If only the conversation became, how can I actually be a wife? How can I actually become the kind of woman that a man would want to marry? Versus blaming it on all Black men or these modern men or coming up with all these reasons. What if I'm this woman? Again, if this woman was walking around personified, I don't think she would have a problem finding a guy. Personally, a woman that is always honoring, always respectful, works hard, is generous, bringing something to the table, encouraging. Do you really think this woman would have a hard time? She's dignified, she's classy in how she presents herself. You really think this woman would have a hard time finding a guy? Really? Says her teachings are filled with wisdom and kindness as loving instruction pours from her lips. What I love about this woman speaks truth, but she does it lovingly, but she's speaking truth. She's not over here pandering and lying to folks. She's giving advice that's actually going to be helpful and lead to productive things. We need more women like that. We need women who are going to keep it real. I'm going to sit here and lie to you just to get some money. They're going to keep it real and tell you the real. That's what we need, seriously. So she watches over the ways of her household and meets every need that they have. Again, this is a woman who is actively involved. She's working hard. She is overseeing. And I think I see this as she finds pride and she finds joy in managing her household, which I think is a beautiful thing. It's like a call. It says her sons and daughters arise in one accord to extol her virtue, and her husband arises to speak of her in glowing terms. To me, that's one of the most powerful verses. It's like when the people around you start boasting you up, start bigging you up, that's when you know you're doing something right. It's one thing to go online and talk about, I'm the best this, I'm beautiful, I'm the GOAT, I'm whatever. It's one thing to do that, but it's another thing when people who know you intimately come alongside you and say, you know what, you're good. You're a good wife. You're a good woman. I'm grateful to have you. You're a good mom. It's a whole nother level when somebody else starts bragging about you. I think that's the kind of thing that we should strive to become. To work to become. To me, I see it as a goal of like, I become such a blessing and impact to those around me to where now they can't help but be like, man, like I'm glad to be around you. Right? To me, these are all things that I can work towards becoming. And until then, quite frankly, I don't really have the space to sit around and complain about what other people aren't doing. Because it's like, I got a whole laundry list of things that I'm working on personally. Okay, it says there are many valiant and noble ones, but you have ascended above them all. This is what I said. Ladies, if you are that woman, you are going to stand out. That's why I said before, if a woman is really as great as she says that she is, if she's all that in a bag of chips, plus 2 plus 3 plus 4, you're going to stand out in a culture of 3 or 4s. So if it's not happening, to me, it's like either a couple of things are happening. Either maybe you're just hidden, maybe it's just not time yet, or maybe you have maybe unrealistic expectations of yourself, or you're not being honest with what you're bringing to the table. But a woman like this, who is marriage-minded, marriage material, all that, she will stand out, especially in today's culture. That's why to me, I'm like, actually, if you want to be married to a certain extent, I feel like this is an amazing opportunity because there is such a lack of marriage-minded and marriageable women, because there's such a lack of that. There's such a lack of women who actually desire to be virtuous and desire to be righteous and to have a good heart and to live before God and to honor their husbands, because there's a shortage of that. For those who are really about it and who live towards that, it's like you're gonna stand out. Like people should see you from a mile away. You know what I mean? It says, charm can be misleading and beauty is vain and quickly fades, but this virtuous woman lives in the wonder, awe, and fear of the Lord. She will be praised throughout eternity. As I said before, women who live this way and who model their lives in a way that is virtuous, again, it's like you reap what you sow. So if you start sowing into those good things, eventually it's going to come back upon you. And to me, that's one of the exciting things about modeling my life off of this, and desiring to grow into this kind of woman. So go ahead and give her the credit that is due, for she has become a radiant woman, and all her loving works of righteousness deserve to be admired at the gateways of every city. What I love about this final scripture is that it talks about her becoming a radiant woman. And so it's not like you wake up one day and you're all of these things. I think we have these qualities, whether it be in seed form. Maybe there's certain qualities that we have more than others, but this is a continual journey. It is a continual walk to wanting to be, some people call it the better versions of themselves. Some people call it purification, whatever it is. But this is a steady journey towards really growing and evolving to this virtuous woman. And so, in my opinion, if there is more of an emphasis on being and doing this, on actually being a wife, on being a virtuous woman, on being marriage material, then a lot of this discourse wouldn't exist. Because our life, because our behavior, because the way we behaved ourselves, or because the way we presented ourselves to the world would be so beautiful, and it would be so different than what is presented, that you would stand out. You would stand out easily. So that is, I think, what I want to add. We know what not to do. There's ton of examples of that, and we're going to continue to see what not to do. We're going to continue to see women, destroy themselves and do silly things and then blame it on men. That's just going to happen. It is what it is. But I think when it comes to actually this desire of wanting to be a wife, and wanting to have a godly marriage, a good marriage, a satisfying marriage, I think one of the ways we can ensure that's going to happen is first becoming that good wife. And that actually starts before you even fully get married. We see that earlier on in the passage where it says, she does her husband good all the days of her life, meaning she is treating herself, treating her body emotionally, spiritually. She's preparing herself for when she does get married. And then even when she is married, there's an ongoing process of continuing to grow and evolve, not only as she's merging with her husband, learning how to be an encouragement, learning how to be a safe space, learning how to feed into her family, working, building up her household, building up her empire, right? Pouring into that, and not seeing that work as bad, or not seeing that work as, oh, well, I'm put in this situation. No, but finding delight in what and how she can help improve and strengthen the home that God has entrusted her with. You know what I mean? Shout out to you, Marriage, Politics, and Sports. This is Bars, Sister Bars. Thank you. I appreciate the 5. So truthfully, if there was more of a focus on this, I really think a lot of this gender war would, if it didn't go away completely, it would at least devolve, right? It wouldn't have nearly so much sting, because these women would be bringing value. They would be bringing value, and that would bring a lot of impact, and that would bring a lot of change to families, to generations, to the community. If we just desired this, if we just worked on being this, if we just worked on being more virtuous, imagine what that could do. But I think it really comes down to whether or not that is actually a desire, whether or not that is actually what a person wants. And we know that a lot of people don't really care about that. They just want their money, they want their comfort. It is what it is. But if you do want that, that's part 2. I'm just saying, this is a part 2 live stream. Sorry, I've just been going off. Yeah, part 2 live stream. I wanted to circle back because I think I spent a lot of time on like what not to do and what I disagree with, but I want to just leave a little note of what I found I think is a really good focus. We want to talk about being a wife. We want to talk about getting married, finding a relationship. I think we should actually try to make ourselves a wife and see if we have my material. And as far as I'm concerned, that is a spiritual journey that you must go on with God and with other people too, right? Other wise women or people who can speak into your life and help keep it real with you. But finding a husband to me is, I think, going to become a lot easier when you have something to bring to the table. And I'm not just talking about looks. It's something intrinsic, it's value, it's character, it's perspective, it's attitude, all of that. And when I went over, which is some of the different things that I'm personally going over, I'm reminding myself of, I'm reading through, I'm measuring my life up against it, being like, okay, how am I handling this situation? How am I presenting the situation? What am I doing for my household, for my family? And I think if there was a conversation shift on how can I get this kind of man and that kind of man versus what can I bring to the table, what kind of value could I offer, I think if the conversation shifted just even a little bit, we would start to see more successful relationships. We would see less complaining. We would see less gender warring. And we would see more women truthfully probably having more pursuit and truthfully having more suitors. Because if you're a woman who's bringing stuff to the table, you don't have to go around and beat your chest and hold a sign. You're going to stand out. So that's really what I wanted to bring. Nothing too crazy. I said, I ended the last live and I was like, let me just try to break this down a little bit, because yeah, there's a lot of mess out there and we're going to continue to see it. But for those out there, even if it's a small percentage who want something different, there is an alternative way. There is a better way. And quite frankly, I think the other way is more powerful. Wanting to be a virtuous woman is powerful, and in the long run it has many benefits. But you're not going to hear that in the mainstream society, and culture is going to tell you that it's all about what you can get and what you can extract, and these dudes ain't dusty and it's all bad and it's all horrible and the world is falling, and you got to grab your passport as a woman, or you got to date out and divest and try to date dudes who don't really want to date you, and it's going to tell you all this stuff, versus encouraging you to look in the mirror and be like, wait, am I actually a wife? Am I actually bringing something of value? Have I actually acted or behaved in a way that's honoring to my future husband? Do I actually have something wise and valuable to bring? Do I value working hard with where I'm at? Do I value treating others respectfully? Like if the conversation shifted ever so slightly, then I think we would see more results. So that's what I wanted to share. Anyways, thank you guys for coming in for a part 2. I know this was kind of random and last minute, but I just wanted to add to it. Again, shout out to you, Marriage, Politics, Sports with the 5. And you guys have a good night. Stay tuned for other upcoming content. Like, share, subscribe. Y'all know the drill. If you haven't already, share this if you found it helpful. And check out the other live if you want. That was a lot longer. I have sources. I break down the whole video not even the whole video. I break down most of the video from Rebecca Lynn Pope. Truthfully, I found it to be a little disappointing, honestly. I found it disappointing, but it's all there. So check it out if you haven't already. And we'll talk later. Okay, guys? Thanks for tuning in. Peace out.